my very respected traditional ruler who has found time to be here this evening, His Royal Highness Igwe Sondora Ohabuenyi II of Aduachi. Permit me also to recognize, as they said in my citation, I'm a PhD student, and my supervisor and director of our school, the Institute for Development Studies, University of Nigeria, Enugu campus, Professor Mosu, is here. And I hope what I say or not say will not affect my dissertation. Also in this audience today is my lovely wife, Dr. Mrs. Idoma Ilo. And I also have my very lovely kids. And so many of my friends have made our time to be here. That's how we say it where I come from. I'm from Aduachi, Jiriva local government area of Enugu State. When a couple of years ago, I started hearing about the efforts of some Igbo sons to put up a center that will, among other things, focus on Igbo, our history, our culture, our contemporary issues and challenges, and of course our future, I was cautiously optimistic. Optimism because I knew the pedigree of those behind it, but curious because I knew it was a tall order, a Herculean task. A few years later, I am happy to reveal that my optimistic expectations have been surpassed, and I'm amazed by the progress already made by the CentreForMemories. So let me begin by congratulating the center for the great job they have done and still doing for Nchetandibo. I'm extremely excited for being chosen to speak today at a very important time when Ndibo is at crossroads, yearning for reinvention and a new and more meaningful future. I see this as a humbling privilege and an opportunity to lend my voice to this reawakening and search for self of Ndibo. Like the old East Central State newspaper was entitled, The Renaissance. I don't know how many that will agree with these issues I will raise today. But my intention really is to start a robust conversation that continues beyond today, outside the walls of this center. It should have been sometime in 1967 or thereabout. My memory of the events of that era are so hazy, but I believe it was early in the morning at the thick of the Nigerian Civil War. And our family was moving again, evacuating from my father's maternal home as the federal forces were closing in on our entire community. Achi in Oji River local government area of Enugu State. My parents and other relations were prioritizing which property would be included in our luggage as we headed for a safer location, far from the invading federal troops determined to crush the Biafran resistance. This unfortunate morning, I was crying and rolling on the ground because my greatest earthly possession, my bicycle, was going to be abandoned as we were fleeing to safety. No family member had a vehicle to transport our belongings, and in the scale of preference, my bicycle did not make the list of important items to be evacuated. I was beyond myself in grief, as my little mind could not comprehend why my most prized possession was going to be abandoned. My parents were sad, but there was practically nothing they could do to assuage their child's pain. This is how, as a little child of about 3.5 years, I became familiar with the title of today's conversation, EBEZINA. EBEZINA, Ebele, Ebewule, depending on what your dialect is. EBEZINA. Thank you. Depending on what your dialect is, EBEZINA could be a word of consolation, a word of encouragement, hope, or even a reprimand. In some situations, EBEZINA can be a call to action. The truth is that EBEZINA, stop crying, derived from Ibakwa, crying. As much as it is used to express or address pain, loss, deprivation, or even maltreatment, if it lingers and becomes a recurring decimal or situation, it could be seen as a sign of weakness, disadvantage, failure, or defeat. And they'll be calling you cry baby. Sometimes it's marks of inability of a person or group to identify challenges, confront it, overcome it, and rise above it. So today, I'm arguing that this crying by Igbo people needs to stop. Igbos have cried enough. It is time to take their fate in their hands. Ndị Igbo have to retreat. Ndị Igbo have to re-strategize and re-examine how the Igbo nation is engaging with the rest of Nigeria. How we are confronting our many challenges. How we are collaborating among ourselves, and how to prioritize our needs as a people. We must stop bemoaning our fate and do something about it today, not tomorrow. There is no doubt that Ndi Igbo have over a long time faced existential threats in this country called Nigeria. For Ndi Igbo, the word marginalization has become synonymous with our complaints about the challenges we face in our nation today. Some have even taken it further to say that Igbos are not only marginalized, but hated by other tribes in Nigeria. So I ask this evening, are Igbos marginalized? Many of our brothers and sisters will answer in the affirmative, but I want to differ somehow by saying that the greatest marginalization against the Igbos is not the marginalization by others. It is not the marginalization by other tribes, but the marginalization of Igbos by Igbos, especially the elites and those that have been entrusted with leadership positions. What is the situation? In the last 26 years, the 5 states of the Southeast have collected trillions of naira in federal government allocations, and add that to their internally generated revenue. Also add extras from ecological fund, the occasional windfalls, and the billions the individual state governments have borrowed or grants they have received from international donor agencies. When you look at these humongous figures, tell me, does anywhere in the Southeast look like an environment where this kind of money has been spent, utilized, or invested in? Does our schools or hospitals in Abakaliki, in Oka, in Enugu, Owerri, or Umuahia reflect the recycled huge amounts the states budget every year for education or health, ditto for other sectors? In all the Southeast today, show me one standard and functional hospital of repute that is run by government that provides affordable health care for the Igbo. Between 1957 and 1966, Dr. Michael Ihonu Karopara, Premier of the Eastern Region, caused what I like to call an infrastructural earthquake and kicked off a developmental revolution in all sectors, including agriculture, education, industrialization, health, tourism, just name it. Few years into his premiership, 1964 to be precise, Eastern Nigeria became the fastest growing and industrializing economy in the world, ahead of Malaysia, South Korea, Taiwan, and Singapore. My dear brothers and sisters, where are these countries today, and where is the Southeast? And we are talking about marginalization. In the First Republic, when he was doing all these miracles, oil was not a factor, and there were no monthly federal allocations to be shared. More than 60 years after, every Igbo man is yearning for the reenactment of that golden era. But as they say, otu awu na-eji. And I ask, ụmụnne m, ọ bụ na nwa Mgbeke amara akpụ isi ka ọ bụ na agụba adịrọ nkọ? At a point during the Jonathan administration, Igbos held many strategic positions. Where did those positions take the Igbo man? At that time, how did our brothers and sisters use their positions to the advantage of Ndi Igbo? Or did they just use it for personal aggrandizement? The Enugu-Onitsha Road and the Port Harcourt-Enugu Road are forever under construction and remains a nightmare that has further compounded the security situation in Igbo land. Yet, we've had governors, ministers, and legislators who represent us in the National Assembly and the Federal Executive Council. Many say that while their cheeks and pockets grew fatter, they will continue to suffer neglect. In politics, how have we fared? The most disgraceful outing was in 2023, when most Nigerians and even non-Nigerians believed it was the turn of Igbos to become president. Many of our brothers connived with people of other tribes and truncated that opportunity. Not only did outsiders work against us, but we worked against ourselves. There were so many enemies within, or saboteurs, a word that became popular during the Nigerian Civil War. Thank God for P2B and Labour Party, which made it possible for Igbos to be counted in 2023. Unfortunately, with all his efforts, the presidency still eluded Igbo. Still fresh in our minds is the 1999 betrayal of Dr. Alex Ekwueme at the PDP convention in Jos, and other opportunities where Igbos just flunked it because Ndi Igbo worked against themselves. And we are talking about marginalization. Nigeria stands on three tripods: Igbo, Hausa, and Yoruba. Is it not worrisome that while the Hausas and Yorubas have taken more than one term in the presidency, Igbos are still docilely waiting? My question is, waiting for who? Power is taken, not given. The other problem with our politics is our political office recruitment system, which has ignored merit and has tilted towards mediocrity. In the old Igbo traditional collegiate leadership, what gave you a seat at the table was hard work and success. So, the best hunter, the best wrestler, the best farmer, and so on, successful people with pedigree, track record, and character were the ones the villages sent to the elders' council. Today, in Igbo land, what qualifies a good number of our people to public office are mundane and pedestrian considerations. Those more likely to get to office to represent our people are the guy or guys, or the guy who carries a bag for the governor, or the guy who cleans the senator's shoes, his barber, his BA, or the chief thug of the chairman of the party. At the end, these, in quotes please, servant leaders, because they are servant leaders, get to office confused and lost. And before they get their bearing, the tenure is over, and they return with billions of naira in their pockets to cause trouble in our communities. Painfully, if nothing is done, 2027 will be more disastrous. One of the biggest issues in Nigeria today is state creation. And what you hear in Igbo land is a staccato of voices and cacophony of presentations. Discordant tunes that may deny the Southeast its right to getting at least 2 more states. It beats the imagination of many, not just me, why Igbos, for something as important as this, are not speaking with one voice. or even in a room having a conversation about it. Why did governors of the Southeast or Haneze Ndi Igbo not convoke a meeting before now to make an effort towards consensus or come up with a well-articulated strategy or to demand for additional states for the Southeast? This is the same way we have handled the agitation for a better treatment of Ndi Igbo by the government of Nigeria. Instead of collaboration between the agitators and the Igbo intelligentsia and leaders, there was a complete disconnect. There was not even an agreement among Igbos on whether we should exit Nigeria or constructively engage in Nigerian states from within. It was just confusion. Igbos continued working at cross purposes, and no meaningful progress has been made to confront the ill treatment of Igbos, or whether you call it marginalization or what, by the Nigerian state. No meaningful progress. Igbo unity and oneness is another kettle of fish. In 2017, Peter Opaleke from Anambra State, now Cardinal Opaleke, was posted to Ahiarambise Catholic Diocese as bishop, but was stoutly rejected by his fellow Igbo people, who tagged his posting as discrimination in Igbo land. For 8 long years, they were up in arms until the bishop resigned and the Pope had to withdraw him. But thank God today, he is a cardinal of the Catholic Church. Is there something others are doing differently in Nigeria? During the Obasanjo regime, the South-South region mounted a campaign for the presidency. At that time, I worked for Chief Raymond Dokbesi, founder of Ray Power and AIT, who was one of the pillars of that agitation. So I had a somewhat front row seat. One thing I noticed was that the riotous political atmosphere in the South-South quieted, and sworn enemies made up. Political opponents started collaborating and planning. While the militants made the creeks ungovernable, disrupting oil production, the political leaders, elites, and elders were engaging the Nigerian authorities. It didn't happen in our case. Confusion. I also discovered that a good number of their political office holders were providing the resources for the advocacy and efforts made towards the agitation and engagements. There were a lot of planning, openly and covertly. And as they say, if you fail to plan, you plan to lose. A question for the bulls. Their media owners were empowered, funded, and galvanized to drive the campaign. I remember in 2000, as a staff of AIT, we were going to be shut down by those we had borrowed money to start the business. It was the leaders of the South-South, besides Nigerians that contributed 50 kobo, 1 naira. It was the leaders, political leaders of South-South, that found a way around it and provided the money for AIT to survive. That is what regions that know what they are doing do. In summary, every hand was on deck, and there was common purpose by the people of the South-South. The South-South did not win the presidency in 2007, but Jonathan became vice president, and the rest is history. Tinubu is today the Nigerian president. Because of Tinubu, everyone in Nigeria knows the meaning of Emiloko. For the man, also known as the Jagaban, to have the audacity, even power, he took it. Some even says he seized it. While Tinubu was governor, and after he left office, he invested and continued to invest in human beings. He left office in 2007. All over Yoruba land, Tinubu identified young leaders, made some commissioners, gave them positions, mentored them, and empowered them. He guided and protected their political growth. One became vice president, some became governors, some became ministers, and many ended up in the National Assembly. His mentees were everywhere, pulling strings, including in other regions of the country. And we saw what happened in 2023. For 16 whole years, Mr. Tinubu never sought office. Rather, Mr. Tinubu provided a ladder for others to climb, while his contemporaries in Igbo land were busy betraying their kinsmen and contesting for any available office with people young enough to be their children. For 16 years, Tinubu organized the Yorubas. Of course, not all Yorubas agreed with him, but a good number of them bought into his vision. Tinubu also knows how to engage other tribes. As part of the 2015 election approached, he, with other opposition leaders, gave birth to APC, where we learned he had to give up the vice presidency just to ensure that the coalition project succeeded and Buhari became president. He allowed his commissioner to become vice president. He didn't say it must be me, because he had a nation's agenda, the Yoruba man's agenda. He knew that that would help it. So he stepped down. He killed his ambition at that time. Under the AC platform, 4 years earlier, Tinubu had supported another northerner called Nuhu Ribadu, if you remember, who is today his national security advisor. Today, Bola Tinubu is the president of Nigeria. What do I think Ndi Igbo should be doing? Ndi Igbo must define their purpose, their objective, and their mission. Ohaneze Ndi Igbo should be repurposed and made relevant, or a new organization should be founded. As the apex socio-political body in Igbo land, Ohaneze must reflect that status in character and in action. The Ohaneze and Igbo leaders should stop sheepishly following state governors and political office holders about. Ohaneze should be the voice of reason and provide the proper direction for Ndi Igbo. Our wealthy sons and daughters, both at home and abroad, must get involved with raising funds to support Igbo causes. If organizations like Ohaneze are well funded, they will be more independent and they will be able to appropriately represent Ndi Igbo interests rather than the interests of transient political office holders. Collaboration is key to development. Actually, collaboration has become the currency of today. I believe that for the Southeast to make any intentional progress, the 5 states of Southeast need to work together, and we need the governors to drive it. Dubai is an emirate in the United Arab Emirates. A lot of us here have been to Dubai. It is like a state or a region in Nigeria. Dubai is not the richest emirate in UAE, but there was an intentional effort by its leaders to develop Dubai, and then other emirates, including the richest Abu Dhabi, started playing catch-up, trying to copy Dubai. And today, Dubai has become the greatest destination in the world. Achieving it is not rocket science, but needs dexterous planning and execution. Instead of turning one state in the southeast into an unachievable and unsustainable Dubai in Africa, can we turn the southeast into that El Dorado? A true Southeast development body needs to be instituted, funded, and made functional to drive such collaborations. Unlike what we had seen in the past, this body must have a life of its own and funding structured in such a way that it is not dependent on the whims of a particular governor or individual dashing us money. The Southeast must partner in what I want to call joint regional projects in different sectors. For example, a rail line or a monorail connecting the 5 southeastern states, starting from Enugu through Oka all the way to Onitsha, and then goes all the way to Owerri, connects to Aba, comes through Umuahia, goes to Ebonyi, and returns to Enugu. Will not only be viable, but will be attractive to any investor, as it will be easy for a return on investment. I remember when I was serving in the Enugu government, the Enugu state government wanted to do a monorail. Even then, I argued that who was going to sustain a monorail for Enugu state? Will the monorail only go from New Market to Agbani Road, or from Agbani Road to Uti? It will not be sustainable. So we need, a bigger elephant in the room for this to happen. A regional highway linking the 5 eastern states is also achievable. Why, for instance, can the Southeast have a regional first-class university owned by the 5 states that would train the best brains in Igbo land? Or an ultra-modern hospital comparable to the best in the world? Why can't it happen? Somebody should tell me why. A simple AI query I made gave me this, and I quote: "The Igbo people are a significant economic force in Nigeria, known for the entrepreneurial spirit, robust trade networks, and contributions to various sectors like agriculture, manufacturing, and small businesses. Their strong emphasis on apprenticeship and networking, along with their resilience, has fueled their economic success despite challenges." Unquote. Today, Igbos dominate a lot of sectors in Nigeria. In retail, in aviation, in hospitality, Igbos have their fingers in many pies. We need to sit down to discuss how these areas of advantage can be strengthened and exploited for the good of the Southeast. Igbos must invest more in manufacturing to create more value chains, especially in the creation of jobs and employment. In the early 90s, former governor of Anambra State, Dr. Chukwuemeka Ezeife, God bless his soul, championed the Think Home philosophy, which encouraged Igbo entrepreneurs to bring their businesses home, including those in diaspora. There is no better time to do it. But now, every day our brothers and sisters doing business in other parts of Nigeria and the world complain of attacks from their hosts. Our brothers in Ghana are going to be thrown out because one of our brothers said he wanted a kingdom, and they sold land to him. And when he wanted to develop and feel good, now they want to throw out all the Nigerians. Our governments in the Southeast must create a welcoming and conducive atmosphere to attract these entrepreneurs back home. This new trend in the Southeast, that the only way for state governments to grow their internally generated revenue is by taxation, has to stop. It is not only driving away investors, but it is killing our small businesses and killing our people. Our governments in the Southeast should be more creative and innovative and come up with revenue generation mechanisms that will not impoverish our people or scare businesses away. Forgive me, Ndi Igbo needs a Tinubu who will demand and seize the presidency. We need rich Igbo men who will identify credible and trustworthy politicians and invest in them. We need our own Tinubu who will look the rest of Nigeria in the eye and tell them, nke a bụ oge nke anyị. We need political leaders that will not seek power for only himself, but will also be willing to seek power to a more qualified Igbo man if that is what is needed. A leader who will not be a perennial candidate for any available office. We need a selfless Igbo leader who will mobilize and galvanize in the Igbo, and like Martin Luther King, be ready to die for Ndi Igbo to be liberated and just look at the mountaintop. For decades of my work in journalism, I've always believed that for a people's voice to be heard, they need to have a platform to amplify it. For a people's message to be not to be distorted, they need to tell their story themselves. That was why the great Zik of Africa, so early in his career, established chains of newspapers. His wife, Professor Charles Zikiwe, told me in an interview many years ago that those newspapers were very important to Zik because he wanted to own the narrative. Sometimes I wonder who could have given the Arab perspective in the Middle East if there was no Al Jazeera. The truth is, the Igbo voice will never be heard loud and clear until Ndi Igbo make a conscious effort to invest in the media and support media houses already established by Ndi Igbo. The media is such a powerful tool that we as a tribe cannot ignore. Early in my broadcast journalism career, I realized this fact, and I was instrumental to the establishment of a number of AIT and radio stations in the Southeast. Unfortunately, because of the harsh economic conditions and management challenges after I left in 2007, the stations did not survive. But the hunger to ensure that as a people, we have a strident voice brought me back in 2024. Now leading a team of professional journalists and seasoned broadcasters, we founded Signature TV to tell the Southeast story from the eyes and perspective of the Southeast, while telling other national and international stories. We have been on this journey in the last 16 months, and it has not been easy at all. In our own case, for us to move our headquarters to Enugu from Abuja, where we had operated for many years, we had to invest extra hundreds of millions to build a brand new station from scratch. And we did it because we believe that the Igbos need to have a voice. Unfortunately, with all these investments, our governments are doing nothing to encourage or support us. When they have events, they will go to Lagos and Abuja to import other TV stations and radio stations and pay them millions, while those of us in the Southeast, radio, TV stations, newspapers, are stoutly ignored. Our businessmen told the same line as they prefer the big stations, forgetting that people invested to make the big stations what they are today. As you know, they also forget that besides telling the Southeast story, that we are from other media entrepreneurs in the Southeast as we groan under the heavy burden of our weak naira, escalating logistic costs, and drop in advert revenues. This is not what happens in other climes, where governments help to sustain the local media because they realize the importance to do so. Finally, no one can tell your stories like you will tell it. And in today's Nigeria media landscape and the unending political competition rooted on tribal allegiances, every interest group must ensure it has a vibrant media sympathetic to their agenda and aspirations. My dear brothers, crying will not change anything for the Igbo. What will cause change are the positive actions we take today to change our situations, ourselves. So, once again, I make this plea in the name of our forefathers. Ndị Igbo, EBEZINA. Chukwu gozie ndị Igbo.
Thank you so much. The vice na atwolo omalo atwolo ofege ofeni sinofia. So I would not have.
Save Nature TV, news in your pocket.